This show is not intended for the politically correct or the closed-minded. Enter at the risk of opening your eyes. You have been warned.
Why does the media attack an issue? To get primetime ratings?
In my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in.
The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
A moment comes when we step out from the old to the new, and when the soul of a nation, long suppressed, finds utterance.
To kind of catapult the propaganda.
You are listening to Open Eyes with your host, Ira Robinson. From the normal to the paranormal, from government cover-ups to the depths of our consciousness, we aim to explore all things. From the dawn of prehistory to current events, no topic is forbidden and nothing remains hidden.
No more secrets.
Open your eyes and open your mind to the fact that life as we know it is not as we have been taught. Join us at latenightinthemidlands.com or openeyesnetwork.com as we take this brief journey through the depths of the cosmos and explore what it really means to be human.
Many peoples have sacrificed their liberties, only to learn to their sorrow that deceit and mockery, poverty and tyranny are their reward.
Whether you're online or offline, intercontinental or intergalactic, hello and welcome to Open Eyes. It is Friday. We are live and in person with you, and if you want to call in and join in with us, you are more than welcome to do so. The number tonight is 260-494-3937. Our Skype line is JDA Film, and as always, we're over in the chat room at lnmradionetwork.com. We're also live streaming over on YouTube at youtube.com/C/Open Eyes Network. Tonight we have a guest coming on with us, Bobby Nash. He's an author, a very prolific author at that, and we'll be bringing him in here in just a moment to give out all of his great information. And I just wanted to say, excuse me ahead of time. I'm working on a cold here. I'm actually just starting to get over it now, but my nose is like so stuffy. My throat is killing me and all that kind of great stuff. All the gunkiness in the chest, all the wondrousness that goes with having the cold. I've definitely got it going on. We were going to go live last night on Brothers in Arms, and I just got to the point I was like, nope, I just can't do it. No way I can do it. I'm exhausted. And even talking for about 20 minutes to somebody before that time period came around completely exhausted me and killed my throat and stuff. So I'm sorry we didn't end up going live last night after all. We totally intended to, and about an hour before it I was like, no, got to give it up as a bad case and a bad cause. So pardon me, but it happens. You know, you can't help getting sick sometimes. But anyways, so we are live, and again, if you want to call in, you can. More than welcome to do so. Don't forget as well that over on YouTube, I have been doing some live streaming of video games lately, and if you guys are interested in that, I might be doing another one later on tonight. It's been a few days since I've done them, and I miss doing it. It's kind of fun to do. So anyways, that YouTube channel is youtube.com/C/Open Eyes Network, and I'd love to see you over there while I'm doing my thing. So anyways, let's go ahead and bring in our guest, Bobby Nash. Bobby, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ira. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it is absolutely my pleasure. I've been looking forward to this ever since I sent you out the invitation to come on the show. I'm like, I really am looking forward to talking to this guy. So it's great to have you here tonight.
With a build up like that, we might be in trouble.
Indeed. Well, anyways, you know, I've got your biography information in front of me, and I could read it off, but I always say to my guests, you know, who knows you better than you? So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself to get us started?
Okay, well, I'm an author. I write novels, comic books, short stories, graphic novels. I've done a couple of screenplays. You know, I write. This is what I do for a job. So if a publisher wants me to write on napkins, I'll do that if they're paying. You know, that kind of stuff. I've been doing it since my first published work was in 1992. And then my first professional comic book was published in 2001, which was a comic book called Demon Slayer. It was at Image Comics and then moved to Avatar Press. And then in 2005, my world changed, or in 2004, my world changed when I sold my first novel that came out in 2005. And I've been pretty busy since then. So that's me. I've been lucky enough to do this, like I said, on and off since 1992. A couple of my things have won awards, which is always a nice bonus. And actually, we're up for a couple of books I worked on are up for some Pulp Factory awards that are being given out at the Windy City Pulp and Paper Con.
I noticed that on your website.
April.
That is really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So fingers crossed. Two of the books. My novel Snow Drive is nominated for Best Novel, which was a nice surprise. And a book that I co-created with writer Sean Taylor. He and I created a book called The Ruby Files, which we did for Airship 27 Productions, and that's an anthology. It's Sean and I each have a story, and then there are two other writers come in and do stories. So there's 4 novellas in an anthology. And The Ruby Files Volume 1, when it came out, we were stunned that it was nominated for all these awards and won them. And so when Volume 2 came out, we were equally surprised that it happened again. So we seem to have caught some kind of lightning in a bottle there that's pretty cool. And so both Sean and I, our novellas from Volume 2 are nominated for Best Short Story. Cover artist Mark Wheatley is nominated for Best Cover Art. Nick Polico, who did the interior illustrations, is nominated for Best Interior Illustrations, and the book itself is nominated for Best Anthology of the Year.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so that's from Airship 27. So so we're really excited. So I'm trying to find a way to make my way to the Pulp Con and Windy City Pulp and Paper in Chicago or Lombard, Illinois. It's a little south of Chicago, in April. So that should be fun.
You know, it's interesting to me that years ago, most authors, especially the ones that were very prolific, were doing things through the pulp genre, that umbrella. And then it seemed to fall out of favor for a really long period of time. If somebody referred to an author as being a pulp author, they were like, no, I think that's an insult. Don't say that, And yet now it seems to be really coming back again, especially with the advent of like ebooks. It's almost like e-pulp kind of thing now instead of the original pulp idea. But I don't see anything wrong with it. I love the idea of it myself.
Yeah, I think it fell out of favor because in the old days, pulp, after a fashion, pulp was really popular when it started,
right?
But then after the war was over, and it started being looked upon as cheap, and I think pulp was then thought of as cheap. So even though people still wrote the same kind of things, they stopped calling it pulp.
Right, yeah, yeah.
But then back around, I want to say 2006, 7, somewhere in there, several small press publishers started doing what they were calling, well, I don't think it was called it that at first, but eventually they started calling it new pulp. And what happened was they were creating new stuff that was in the pulp genres, but they were also taking all these wonderful characters from the 30s and 40s that had lapsed into public domain, and they were doing new stories
right
with these pre-existing characters. And so I kind of got involved with it that way, actually. Ron Fortier, who is the publisher at Airship 27, he and I, we knew each other from comics. We'd both written comics. And we had known each other online, but we met for the first time in person. We were both guests at Dragon Con in Atlanta. And we had tables next to each other, and we were talking. At the end of my first novel had just come out. I was so proud. Ron went home with a copy of the novel. And a short time later, I want to say within weeks after the convention, I got an email from Ron saying, hey, we're starting up this new venture. It wasn't quite called Airship 27 yet at the time, but he's like, we're we're going to do pulp stories. And I read your stuff, and I think you could do some great pulp stories. And I'm like, cool. I just have one question. He goes, yeah, what's that? It's like, what's a pulp story? So, and then one, which is a joke that's been bandied around, because if you've ever been to a convention with any pulp writers, there's always a panel called "What is Pulp?"
Yep.
that we all hate doing, because we've done it, like we've answered that one question 900 times apiece. But we started. I say we, as a bunch, like I said, a few different small press publishers mostly started doing these anthologies, and the amazing thing happened is there was an audience that started going, ooh. There was a nostalgia factor that went, I remember reading stuff like that when I was a kid. And so we found an audience, and it continued to grow. And there are publishers now that are still publishing new pulp stuff. There's some very talented people, some really good books and characters. And like I said, some people are doing the older characters. People are doing new stuff. I mean, I've been writing adventures of Domino Lady for Moonstone Books, and she's a character that appeared in 3 stories in 1936, and that was pretty much it.
I've actually got one of the covers of that on the YouTube stream going on.
Oh, very nice. They're very sexy covers. They really grab you. They in her original 6-issue run, or 6-book run. She was in the magazine, and there were multiple stories in the books. In the 6 issues she appeared in what they called the spicy pulps, which were the adult books of the day. And I'm air quoting that as well. But they were the adult books of the day. So those were the books that kids couldn't buy. They were behind the counter.
They were in the naughty section. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you read them by today's standards, I can see more at 8 o'clock on regular TV.
Exactly.
There's a lot of innuendo, but basically she enjoyed sex. And I think that's really what put it over, is that she was a single woman who liked to have sex. And so she did, and she used it as a weapon. But she was also very smart. People seem to overlook that part because they look at the dress, because she's in that very slinky dress, but she would write the villains, because her villains were mostly corrupt politicians or corrupt businessmen or dirty cops, things like that. And so thieves, villains, just villains of that nature. She wasn't fighting supernatural forces and stuff like that on a regular basis, but she would find out who they were, and she would write them letters and mail them letters that says, I know what you did, and here's what I'm going to do to you for it. And here's what, and it's what's going to happen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And she would send them these letters, and these mobsters or whatever would go, oh, well, I'm on guard for her now. And then she would outsmart them and still get around and do exactly what she said she was going to do right under their noses. So I really, I was lucky enough to write a story, and then lucky enough to come back in later and write another one. I really just kind of fell in love with the character, and been writing her for a few years now, which is really fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've got Money Shot. That's the cover I've got on there.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's actually, to my knowledge, unless there's one hidden from history, that is the first Domino Lady novel ever.
That's awesome.
So, yes, that was one of those. My publisher called me up and says, so we're wanting to do a political thriller, a Domino Lady political thriller novel. Are you in? And before he got all that out, I'm like, I'll do it.
Count me in.
Because he was smart. He knows I love, because most of my novels have a thriller element to them.
Right, I noticed that. Yeah.
I'm not as big on the politics stuff, but 1930s politics I figured wasn't too bad. But yeah, it was nice. He knew I liked doing thrillers, and he thought it would be entertaining, and I dove right in and picked up some threads that were never resolved from her original stories, plus things I had worked into my other stories. And I'm pretty happy with how the story came out.
That is cool. So,
hopefully we'll get to do another.
Yeah, that would be great. That really would. 'Cause I mean, the idea of taking some of those older characters and making them new again, in some kind of way, using like some of the modern language, some of the ways that that people have I guess modified themselves over the years, taking that kind of same attitudes and putting it into these older characters. I think that's a really great idea, a great thing to do, because they were popular for a reason. They were great characters and people fell in love with them. They wanted to know what was going to happen with them.
Yeah. And there seems to be two schools of thought. A lot of publishers are doing them, like with Domino Lady. We're setting her in the era she was created.
Right.
So there's a lot of publishers do that because that's, they were created in that era, so they want to keep them there. There are other publishers who are doing, let's see what happens if they were created today.
And that would be fantastic too. Yeah.
I'm actually scheduled to later this year work on a Secret Agent X novel, which would be if Secret Agent X were today. And which, oddly enough, with Secret Agent X's origin, I don't really have to change anything because his origin is basically he was fighting in the war in Afghanistan. Something happens to him. He is injured. He disappears. And while he's disappeared, he learns these skills at mask making and camouflage and how to blend in and things like that. Comes back to the States, goes to work for a government agent, and fights crime. I don't have to change a thing.
Not a bit.
It's amazing how little the world has changed.
Exactly. And kind of disturbing too in a lot of ways. Yep, exactly. Well, I'll say, one of the things that we were talking about before we actually started here tonight was the fact that you're really a prolific writer. You've put out a lot of stories, to say the least. And what got you started writing? Let's go way back. What got you actually started writing? Like how did you fall in love with it?
Okay. Well, I became a writer by accident. My big goal in life when I was younger, when I was a teenager, my big goal in life was I wanted to be a comic book artist, and so I drew and I started writing stories so I would have something to draw, not realizing that my writing was a little better than my art, because no company's going to hire me to draw comics. I know this now. I did not know that then. And then it just it grew from there. Other artists that I knew, because when you're in high school and then in college, you always kind of gravitate toward other people that have a similar interest.
Yep.
And so I met all these other artists who were like, "Hey, cool, can you write something for me to draw?" And so I started doing that, but I still never thought of myself as a writer. And it took tough love from a friend of mine to sit me down one day and goes, "Look," he said, "I'm going to give you some hard truth here." He says, "I know you're trying to do the writing and you're trying to do the art, and you're not great at either because you're splitting all your focus." And he says, "I hate to be the one to tell you this," and I'm paraphrasing all this because it was a long time ago, but he said, "I hate to be the one to tell you this, but you're never going to be a professional comic book artist." He says, "But you're not a bad little writer." I'm like, okay. And he caught me at the right time because I listened instead of, my usual knee-jerk reaction in those days, which would be, "You're nuts." So I kind of took it to heart and started focusing more and more on writing. And then this amazing thing happened. I got hired to write some comic book stories. And hey, it's amazing the motivation you get when someone puts money in your hand.
Oh yeah.
And and at this point I was in college and I was, I'm like, I'm out and on my own, and so every dollar I can get,
every single one is important. Yep.
And so suddenly it's like, hey, now we're not talking big money, but when you're in college, any money's money.
Yep.
When you're, and so I started, doing stuff with friends. And then one night I get this grand idea. I'd come home from my job. I was out of college by this point. I came home from my job on a Friday night. I sat down at the computer, and with my dial-up internet service, I went and I looked for every comic book publisher, no matter how big or small, that had a website and I contacted them. I sent them all an email, tell them who I was, what I was interested in doing. I have some samples if you'd like to see them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I easily sent out 60 emails. I heard back from one company that said, thank you, we appreciate it. Unfortunately, our company is, we're about to suspend operations. It's just, but we appreciate you reaching out to us, but, And so, dejected, I just kind of went back to doing what I was doing. A year later, I get an email from the guy that had responded to me and says, hey, we're taking our books to another publisher. Would you be interested in doing a tryout for us? And so they had a 2-issue miniseries. The artist owned the character and they owned the book. And so he was plotting it. And so what he would do is he would send me like however many, it was 22 pages, I believe. He would send me the 22 pages and we'd get on the phone and he would tell me what he was thinking was happening in those 22 pages. And then I would come up with all the script around it and flesh it all out. And they liked what I did, and I worked on that book for 4 years. And then during that time, I just said, hey, I'm going to write a novel. And I did, and it was awful. But I finished it, which is very important. If you can write and finish a novel, you can write and finish another novel.
Exactly, yeah.
Getting to that point where you're done, no matter how awful it is, or if it needs more work where you go back, being able to type the end is such a sense of accomplishment that it propels you forward. Because especially on your first novel, and you know this, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Before you're done, how many times did you want to quit?
Too many to count. Too many to count. Yes.
Because it's hard. I mean, it's work, and it's scary, and you don't know if you're any good, and you don't know what's going to happen when people read it, and all these insecurities are just screaming in the back of your brain as you're writing your first novel. So being able to finish it gave me a boundless sense of confidence that said, okay, this was not so good, but I learned some stuff, so let me try another one. And so I started writing one. And I said, this time I'm gonna get some education. So I signed up for night classes at the University of Georgia, the non-credit classes, they do once a week. And there was one called Creative Writing, and there was one called Murder and Mayhem for Fun and Profit. And I'm like, how can I not? And so I went, and the class was interesting. It was you did your writing, on your own time. You brought it to class. Harriet Austin was a teacher, wonderful woman. She was a great inspiration and motivation to me over the years. And I would go to this class, and so we have a little class stuff at the beginning, but then we would read our stuff out loud in front of the group of other writers, and you get this instantaneous feedback. Now, at this point, I was a very shy guy who was insecure about his writing, and reading in front of a group of people I didn't know was the most terrifying thing I think I had ever done in my life.
Oh, I definitely understand that. Yes. But
some amazing things came out of it. I met some very interesting people that I remain friends with to this day, and that was easily, God, 15, 16 years ago or more. I easily, made friends, people I still speak with on a fairly regular basis. I got better at the writing because that instant feedback really worked, because, and I learned that when you read something out loud, even I was catching stuff that didn't make sense. Looks good on paper.
Yes, exactly. I do that all the time with my own writing. I have to, if I'm writing something and I find myself stopping sometimes, and I've learned that when I've come to an end, like when I'm stopped right in the middle of a paragraph or whatever the case may be, and I get distracted or I'm looking into something else, as long as it's not something, actually my wife tapping me on the shoulder or something like that, but what I end up doing is I'll read back what I wrote, and I think to myself, okay, that doesn't quite make sense, or that doesn't quite fit what I was trying to say. So I'll read it aloud to myself, and nope, it didn't work. That's why I stopped. It's like my brain knew I didn't want to go on, because if I went on, it would be, going on the wrong path or whatever the case may be. So yeah,
just more stuff to delete the next day.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Saves me the editing later. Yeah.
So the other thing that it helped me with was it helped me get over the shyness. I mean, the Bobby of, those early 2000 days would never have been able to do what I'm doing right now, or get up to go to conventions and talk to panels and, but it was so funny. And I know this is an audio thing, so it's a little difficult, but when I first started, I would hold the paper up in front of my face to read, so I didn't have to look at anybody. And there was this lady that was in the class, named Sandra, and she was a very nice lady, and she was in there writing for more personal reasons. She wasn't interested in being published or anything like that. And nice lady. And I started noticing she started sitting next to me, and when it was my turn to read, I'd hold the paper up, and while I'm reading, she would reach over and put her hand on my arm and push the paper down. And she would do this enough, and I'd put it back up, and she'd push it back down. And we'd do this enough to where I finally just stopped putting the paper in front of my face, just so she'd leave me alone. But it really helped, because I learned to make eye contact with everyone that's in there staring at me while I'm reading, and it helped me to kind of get over that shyness, which actually helped my reading in a loud sound better, because I wasn't as nervous.
Right.
And
exactly.
so I learned all that stuff from that. So
and one other thing too, I think people as authors, we don't really always acknowledge how important it is to have other authors as friends, people that are in that same field, because, being a writer, being any kind of creative really, but being a writer especially, we're more consigned to being, stuck in our rooms, in the corner with our keyboards tapping away, and not really being sociable with people. Right. The idea of the author as the introvert is definitely there for a reason. But, when it comes to, getting feedback or just surrounding yourself with other people that understand that very inherently is really important for I think mental health, really, as far as an author is concerned. What do you think about that?
I absolutely agree. I have a handful of creative friends that, and not only just what you said, but I mean, also when it's not working for me, or I've got a problem with a publisher, or I ran into this issue or that issue or whatever, I have other friends that know what that's like.
Right.
So if I go to them and complain, I've got someone to complain who understands. Because if I complain to my family, they go, "Oh, that's nice." But whereas if I can, I can get those frustrations out with people that understand. And also when things go right, or when things are great, because a lot of times we do a lot of stuff that's do not share, and you're holding on to secrets for months, sometimes years at a time. Yeah. It's nice to have one or two people that are also in the business who understand what that means, that I can tell that secret to, knowing they won't tell, just to get it out.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, and again, it's one of those things, I tell my family, they're like, "Oh, that's nice." No, I want someone to go, "Oh my God, that's freaking awesome."
Join with me in the excitement. Come on.
Exactly. And so it is nice having creative friends to do that with. Sometimes what wonderful things come out of having friends that are creatives. This whole, we mentioned the Ruby Files earlier that's up for the awards. I was out of town for something, and I came back home, and we're all part of this group of Pulp Factory group. It's like an email Yahoo group type thing. And so I get all these suddenly there's like all these emails I missed from missing a day of being out of town. And so somewhere in there, there was talk about, man, I wish there were some nice new like pulp PI characters. And as I'm reading, Sean, and I know Sean's like, man, I got an idea. I'll do it, but only if Bobby does it with me. I'm like, well, I don't have, before I can even respond, it's already been greenlit by a publisher. And I'm like, I haven't even agreed to do this yet. And they're like, oh yeah, you're doing it.
Too bad, you're doing it anyway.
And so, yes, some of my publishers, they do know how to get me. They, I've said no to projects just because I don't have time. And then they corral me or corner me in a bar at the convention or whatever, where they know they can talk me into it. Yeah, they're sneaky. But that's why they're the publisher.
That's why they get the money like that. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yep. So, but being around creative people, it also helps fire my creative juices.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I like to have authors on this show. I have a lot of different people on the show. I've got, I've had psychics, paranormal investigators. I've had, people that are conspiracy theory. And I mean, you name it. I've had pretty much everybody on this show at one time or another. Been doing it for a while, But I like having authors come on because, I'm an author and I don't get to talk to authors very often because, again, the introvert thing is there. So it's like, for me, this is a great way for me to get my own self fired up. I come away from this show thinking, man, I'm ready to write. I pull out my free write and I start typing away. It really fires me up. It gets me excited about it. I hear about the successes that other people are having, or the good times that they're having, or they did this really cool thing, or whatever the case may be. And I'm like, yes, I'm looking forward to that too. So it's great for me. And I love giving back to the author community in some kind of way because I've had so much support from the people that are out there in the community. I want to give back in some kind of way, so that's why I do these shows like this and have guys like you come on. It's great for me.
Yeah. And it's a wonderful, I have found the not just the writer community, but the creative community in general, but I meet mostly writers. The writing community is very open and welcoming. And
really, yeah.
I've met so many people that even though we're working on books that could be considered competition with one another, we're not out there trying to slit each other's throats. We're out there going, oh, you did this. Congratulations. Let me tell people about your book. And people, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of this congratulatory and welcoming and, oh man, you did a really cool book, or there's just a lot of friendly camaraderie that I found in this creative community.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree. Don't disagree.
And I love it. It's it makes what we do so much easier.
I know people that are in the music industry that feel the opposite way about their industry. There's so many people that are cutthroat within that industry and they don't want to do anything with anybody else. They're very, very competitive, to say the least. And again, even though writers, quote unquote, are in competition with each other, technically speaking, I mean, in reality, it's everybody has a different niche. Everybody has a different set of fans that are just as wide as the next person's is. And so much of it crosses those lines. It's like there's people that are readers that love, not only, thrillers and crime drama and so on and so forth, but they also love, science fiction or science fantasy or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. And they'll grab, 4 or 5 books off of the shelf all at once, and not have any second thoughts about it whatsoever. They'll go home and they'll enjoy every single one of them, even though they're quote unquote in competition with each other.
Right. Yeah, and there's a lot of different things, like people trading off books, or hey, I'm interested in your book. Well, I tell you what, let me have one of yours, and you'll get Yeah. There's a lot of that, and there's a lot of I'll leave a review. I'll read it and leave a review. They'll do the same, or we'll share it on reviews online or whatever, and Facebook posts or what. I mean, it can be a very very what's the opposite of competition? Whatever they. It's a very complimentary and helpful group of
reciprocal
people.
Yeah, very reciprocal.
That's the word. See, I need a dictionary. Yeah. or a thesaurus or something. Yes.
Yes, something.
This is why they make editors.
We just write the words. They come up with the fancier stuff.
There's quite often I'm writing things and I'm going, it'll just stop it in parentheses, go, can't remember the word I want to use, and keep going, and come back later and go, oh yeah, I gotta go look that up.
I tend to use 3 or 4 asterisks in the spot.
Yeah. Like, I know there's a word, I just can't remember it, and I don't want to break the flow of what I'm doing.
You got it, exactly. All right, well, listen,
I'm glad
Bobby.
to know I'm not the only one.
You're definitely not alone there, that's for sure. We need to hit a break here real quick. When we come back, I've got some more questions that have come in for you from the chat room. I've got some of my own, and we'll get more into all of this stuff. How's that sound to you?
Works for me.
All right, you guys are listening to Open Eyes. If you guys want to call in and ask any questions yourself, you're more than welcome to do so. The number is 260-494-3937. Skype line is JDA Film. As always, we're over in the chat room at lnmradionetwork.com and also on YouTube, youtube.com/C/Open Eyes Network. We've got Bobby Nash with us tonight. We'll be back in just a few minutes, folks. Stick around.
You can listen to the LNM Radio Network 24 hours a day, 7 days a week through the Paranormal Radio app. Available from lnmradionetwork.com or talkstreamlive.com on both Android and Apple. Our call to listen line is open 24/7. Dial 701-719-9704 so you can listen on the go.
Ben Franklin said, if you do the same thing tomorrow as you did today, you're going to get the same tomorrow as you got today. Changing the world starts with you, and changing you starts with changing the way you think. Late Night in the Midlands can help. Listen to all of our shows at latenightinthemidlands.com, because things really do need to change. There are days that the red pill is bitter in my stomach, but I can't get it back out. I think because I have to. I speak because I have no choice. I walk through this dark age we're in with open eyes. Listen to Open Eyes on latenightinthemidlands.com, and together, maybe we won't stumble and fall.
Do you need toner for your Epson, Hewlett-Packard, Canon, Brother, Apple, or Sharp printers? Look no further than Laser Technologies. In business for over 20 years, they offer the lowest prices on toner on the web. They can also repair your laser printers and toners fast and easy. Call their expert staff today at 561-792-9600 or email us at service@laser-technologies.com for all your toner needs. All toner is shipped nationwide. Why wait? Get the lowest prices on toner. Call or email us today.
The LNM Radio Network offers a chat room for you, the listener, to connect with others whom are interested in the topics and guests that the LNM Radio Network brings to you. During the live shows, the hosts will even visit the chat room and chat with you, the listener. Click on the big red Chat and Listen button at the top of the website and join us. No subscription is needed at either lnmradionetwork.com or latenightinthemidlands.com.
Why subscribe to Late Night in the Midlands, you ask? Well, I'll tell you why. Late Night in the Midlands covers everything, and through the thousands of expert guests who have joined Michael Vera on his show, come pieces of the big puzzle, which started many years ago. Michael and his guests reveal information dating back to the beginning of time. To this very moment, Michael Vera not only brings you the best guests with the best information, but Michael is not afraid to call out those who are less than honest. You see, in this day and age, we need a radio show we can count on and a radio host we can trust to expose the truth one show at a time. So, become a late nighter and subscribe now. Talk radio like no other. Late Night in the Midlands, bringing the truth back to talk radio.
From the author of Silent Steps and Haunted, Finding an Explanation for the Unknown, comes a story so chilling it will haunt you for years to come. Krista is a young woman escaping her past, running away from her family, her traumas, and her God, hoping to find a new life in a different town. But when she is forced to make a horrible choice, she comes to realize malevolent entities have controlled the true darkness she has been a part of. That is when her real terror begins. Penitence is disturbing and evocative. It will tear down the walls between what is real and what is nightmare. Penitence is the new novel by the man called the new master of speculative fiction, Ira Robinson. Find it and all of his books at his website, originalworlds.com. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Open Eyes. My name is Ira Robinson. Tonight we're here with Bobby Nash, and hopefully you guys are enjoying the show as much as I am. I'm definitely having a good old time tonight. It's a Friday. We are live, and we're in person with you. And if you want to call in, 260-494-3937 is the call-in number. Our Skype line is JDA Film. And as always, we're over in the chat room at LNMRadioNetwork.com. Don't forget, if you guys want to check out my own books, that you guys can do that over at my website, originalworlds.com. I'd love for you guys to come on over there and see what I have on offer. But anyways, let's get back to the conversation we're having here with Bobby. And again, if you want to call in, go for it. Bobby, we have somebody in the YouTube chat who claims they're your number one fan. His name's James. So anyways, we are back, and hopefully you're enjoying the show too.
Yes, I'm having a ball, and I knew there was somebody out there, James. I'm glad to have you with us.
Awesome. Well, you know, what they were asking as far as your writing process goes, if you would not mind explaining how your writing process goes.
There's a process. I guess I'm closer to what they call a pantser than a plotter, although I have a loose plot. Generally, when I start a story or a book or whatever, I generally know the beginning, and I have an ending in mind. That ending sometimes changes, but I generally have an ending in mind a bit. And so what I do is I go through and I pick out, I call them signposts, but I mean, they're plot points. And what I do is I have these major plot points that I know we're going to start here. We've got to hit this plot point, or maybe not plot point, or this has to happen. You know, character A has to meet character B at some point. We have to see a murder, or something's going to explode, or I know these things have to happen. And what I will do, once I know my characters, I start writing at the beginning, and I aim for that first signpost, which is like, okay, if I'm writing a book here with character, I've set up the first chapter is usually either setting up character or setting up a event, depending on what kind of book you're writing. then we start with my character is doing something. And so if I've got my character here, and I know that my character has to at some point meet character B, because they're going to become friends or something like that. And so I start writing to get there. And I already know things about the character, and I know things about the character's background and different things going on. So sometimes I can just start with character bits and see that character either doing something. If I'm writing like a crime story, I may start with a cop or a PI. So I may start showing them doing their job. And there's a way to ease in and meet the character and then go forward. If it's a different kind of story, it could be a pilot. I could show the pilot, flying or whatever. Just I start with something with character, and I can go forward and use that as my starting point. And then once I get going and get to know my characters, I can kind of follow them around and see where they're going to go. So, we may take a straight shot at that first signpost, or we may take a U-turn and go over here and have something else happen before we get there. Things like that. So I leave it a little open to follow the characters. But, as long as I'm nudging them back, kind of like I'm kind of like the GPS going, you have missed your turn, make a U-turn. I have to tell the character, my characters don't listen to me all the time. So but sometimes I have to throw things in their way to make them turn back where I want them to go.
Been there.
But, yeah. So, so pesky characters when they want to do what they want to do. Sometimes they make my life more difficult because I want them to walk right up to that door, open that door, and go inside. My character will go, are you nuts? It's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the left around the building. And I'm like, well, that doesn't work for me. And they're like, I don't care. So it's, but it makes me be more creative, I think, to make the characters feel like the characters. Because if you start writing the characters out of character, your audience is going to know it.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to pick right up on it. Yep.
Yeah. And so they're going to know something's not right. And so you have to, so it adds it's a challenge sometimes, but yeah, it helps me to know the characters. And really that's where I start with. I mean, the first thing I do is I'm sitting down and I start, write out the characters, like my current series I'm doing is called Snow. And Abraham Snow is the lead character. So when I was creating those, I'd like Abraham Snow, and I'd write like a paragraph about him, just what I knew about him up front. And then I'd go, oh, he's got a brother. Okay, so we write about his brother. Oh, we mentioned his friends. And so you start going through and writing about all the people that are in their lives, and it can be a paragraph, it can be a sentence sometimes. Because when I did the first book, I created characters when I was plotting the first book that don't show up till book 3. But I wanted them there so I could at least mention the name if I needed to. So there was things like that. So I know what's going on, even if I'm not telling the audience that yet. So once I go through all that, and sometimes in the process of doing that, you come up with ideas for those characters that may happen in book 3 or 4 or 5. And so I'll jot little notes about, hey, wouldn't it be cool if Big John gets arrested later and, this happens and things like that. So I start that way. And so I get to know the characters, and then I generally have, like I said, an idea of the plot. I start writing that and then go and see where they'll take me. And like I said, the ending is not always set because things will happen. And this is why I'm glad that I write in the age of the computer. Because I have in the past been near the end of a story and have to go back and change things because something happened. My following the characters leads me to something happening that requires me to go back and either set it all up or change things so it makes sense. And I can't imagine doing that in the old day where you just had to start typing over again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember those days. I remember those days well.
So cut and paste is my friend.
Yeah. So, I use Scrivener. Scrivener is definitely a helpful thing to have that kind of occurrence with your writing. It makes it a little bit easier to switch things around or to find and erase a lot of things that you didn't want there, but yet still be able to keep them, at the same time. I mean, I know people that have like just, deleted entire Word documents and that kind of thing out. I'm like, no. If you're using Scrivener, you can just, send it over into this other little area here and you can keep it for a later story or something. It doesn't mean that it
never throw
it was
anything
bad.
away.
Yeah, exactly.
But I've never used Scrivener. Now I have friends that use it, and I've heard good things, but I've never used it. I generally just write in Word. That's how I learned, and it works for me.
Yeah, that's how I did things for a while, and then with my blindness, I kind of have to do things to help myself facilitate things a little bit easier.
Gotcha.
And so I ran across Scrivener. I'm like, well, I'll give it a shot, and it seems to work, pretty well for what I need it to do. And I don't use all of the features that it's got. I know other people that have used, using it to outline every single bit and the cork boards all over the place and everything. No, I don't do that. I just use it to help me get those one little, the little points or the bits together.
Yeah. One writer friend of mine was using it for, and I thought this was very interesting. She was writing a book. She was doing a media tie-in novel, and there were the four main characters plus the villains and all. And she had a different cork board for each, and she had the story points for each character in their own folder or in their own cork board.
Gotcha.
And so that when she needed something from one, she could just go to that instead of trying to remember through the whole plot of who's doing what or what, And I thought that was interesting. I try to keep notes. I keep my notes and my little signposts. I used to do them as like bullet points. And I'll keep those below where I'm writing. So as I'm writing, they're just a scroll down, and I'm there.
Right. Yeah.
And then as I pass those things, I can just delete them off. And I've already saved that plot somewhere else as well. But then I just import it in. And that way, when I get notes or when I get new ideas, because sometimes you'll get ideas, I'll be writing chapter 4, and something will go, ooh, I need to follow this back up when we meet them in chapter whatever later.
Right. Yeah.
And I'll put those notes at the bottom, or sometimes, like I said, sometimes things just change. Snow Drive is the third book in the series. And the way I'm setting the Snow books up is it's kind of a crime adventure, kind of a throwback to the old TV shows, like a Magnum or a Rockford, that kind of feel. Each book is its own story, but there's a thread that runs through the first 6 books makes up season 1 or series 1.
That's exactly how I'm doing the Black Rose Files. It's a paranormal themed book, series of books, but it's the same idea. They all take place within a singular town. The characters are basically the same from book to book, but there's a different main character in each of the different books. So it's like each of them have their own storyline basically going on, but it's within that singular story arc overall.
Yeah. Right. That way, if you read one, you still get a whole story, because I personally hate to get to the end of a novel and it's read the words "to be continued."
Right. Exactly. Same here.
Now,
yep.
I don't mind that there's a second book. I'll probably, if I like this one, I'll get it. But I at least want a full story in book 1. That's the book I'm reading.
That I'm with you on that, Bobby, for sure. Because when I write sequels to books, the book that I write it's a complete story in and of itself. There may be things that are remaining, to be answered, but the ending is very satisfied, and you could walk away from it and never read the next book and feel like you're missing anything, but then if you do read that second book, well, you're gonna discover more about the story. It opens up even wider. So that's kind of how I do it too. I don't like to leave people just hanging. I don't think it's
right. Because there's an A plot in every one of those books that will be wrapped up, but there's stuff going on that will keep you hopefully wanting to come back and read the rest. And usually, after I wrap it up, there's a final chapter that leads into the next one.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to know more, you'll come back to the next one. With book 3, in book 1, I set up the villain of series 1 with plans that we would, do things on and on and on. Or there was this character that I should say was very important and was going to be in all 6. At the end of book 3, I needed a body to be found. And suddenly, but with just a couple of hints of dialogue, this character that I planned to use through all 6 stops at 3. Which totally, screwed up my plans. But when I looked at it, I had another character there that it made much more sense to have that character be the one doing those things later. It's one of those things, sometimes your subconscious is thinking of it long before you are. I did a pulp story for an audiobook a few years back, and it was based on an old-time radio show called Night Beat. And they were written for audio and ebook. And so it's about this reporter that walks the night beat, and that's where he gets his stories. And I have him encountering the girlfriend that got away, and she's in trouble. She had married a mobster, and now she's trying to get away from him with her young daughter. And he gets involved, and it's pretty cut and dry. I knew that the husband was the bad guy. The main character knew the husband was the bad guy. Everybody knew the husband was the bad guy until the hero and the husband meet. And the hero's like, I know what you're doing, and I'm here to stop you. And with just a couple of lines of dialogue, I realized, oh crap, the husband is not the bad guy. And so, which made me suddenly scramble to figure out who was the bad guy. And I was like, once I did, I'm like, oh, this is so much better. Let me go back and plant clues so it doesn't come out of nowhere. So I go back and I reread it, and the clues are already there. So subconsciously, my brain and the characters were already 2 steps ahead of me. But I had to figure it out organically, I guess, for it to make more sense. Because if I'd have known it before I figured it out, I would have probably written it different to get there.
Right, exactly. And then it wouldn't be nearly as effective.
Right.
I've done that. I've done that too.
When those things happen.
I've done that too myself, but I would ask a secondary question to that. Have you ever had a character bring a character along with them that you never planned for, but when you wrote them in, realizing this character basically said, no, this other character has to be here. Have you ever had that happen to you?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one.
in my first published novel, Evil Ways, there is the sheriff of the small town that takes place in. The main characters are an FBI agent and his brother who owns the local newspaper, small town newspaper. They're the main characters. The sheriff of this small town has a part in the book, but it was never intended to go beyond that. He was there for what he was there for. I'm working on the second book now, and he appears there again because it made sense to have him there again. And I wrote a second novel that was not a sequel to Evil Ways, but I invented this town in Evil Ways that I liked so much that I needed a town out in the country in my novel Deadly Games. And I was like, well, I'll just use this one I've invented. And so, never intending to bring any characters over. But because of the nature of the book and what happens in the book, the sheriff had to get involved. And so suddenly now this character who I never intended to use more than once has appeared in 3 books. And every once in a while I hear him knocking away in the back going, when do I get my own series? So now I have an idea for him to have a couple of solo stories. And so this is a character who, was intended to just be a one-shot, one-use, never hear from him again character, just won't leave me alone.
Wow.
And so
that's
I
awesome.
have plans to take him forward and do some stuff with him.
That is awesome. I had a character in the book that I've got coming up publishing in the next month or so here, Voices Carry. I've got one character that's in there called Nerese, who I never planned for her to be there. Like I had no thought when I was plotting the book or anything like that, had no thought that she was going to be there. But the main antagonist of the book, Sala, was, kind of intended to have a storyline, from A to B, and that was it. Right. And it was fine and dandy. But then when I started writing, all of a sudden this other character, Nerese, literally wrote herself onto the page. And I'm like, okay, what's this? So as I'm going through the story, I'm realizing, okay, if I had not put her into this story, the story would not have nearly the depth that it ended up getting. And the character Sala turned out to be so much more, well, again, deep, than I ever intended for her to be. And yet I loved her because of all of the stuff that was going on between her and Nerys,
Right.
And if that character, if I had followed the plot that I had outlined from the get-go and said, no, this character isn't written in here, I'm sticking with it, the book would not be nearly what it is now. It's weird how that happens, but I love it when it does.
Absolutely. It's one of those just, one of those amazing magical things that happens that you're just, wow, I can't believe this happened.
And I know other people out there that aren't writers can hear this kind of thing and think, well, boy, that's schizophrenic, isn't it? But it really is the truth that these characters are alive to us. They're a part of us. These are our brain babies,
Mm-hmm. And they truly do carry on lives of their own.
They do.
And they're living, breathing real characters. And when I'm writing them, I don't think of them as something I created. I'm just, I know everybody hears, like you said, they hear writers say this, but, it's true. I mean, we get to know them and you're following them around and watching what they will do. And they don't always do what I intended them to do.
And that's okay. That I think the people that are like me, because I used to be a pantser, when I wrote, but I'm more of an outliner now. I think I'm an over outliner at this point in time because the outline that I wrote for this book that I'm on right now is like 12,000 words. Way too much of an outline. The one that I did for the previous book was 17,000. Way too much of an outline. That was 1/3 of the book practically. But when it comes to outliners, I think that a lot of outliners when they stick strictly within the bounds of that outline, they kind of do themselves a disservice with kind of doing, I don't know, maybe a pseudo pantsing kind of thing where you're writing the beats of the story and sort of following the flow of those beats and letting whatever happen during those beats. There definitely is something to be said about that with the creative process. It's not a bad thing at all. And I think for people that are like you that have found successful ways of doing that for yourself, that more power to you. For me, I have to have a little bit of an outline to keep me going, I think. But only because I've had the experience of being a pantser and have abandoned so many stories because I just lost track of where I was going with it, over time. And I don't like that feeling. I don't like to do that.
My problem was if I was to do an outline that in depth, by the time I got around to writing it, I would have lost the interest a little bit to write it.
Right, and that's definitely a problem that I've ended up occurring, with these past couple of books. It's like it feels almost more like a slog as I'm writing it because I've already written the book, practically. I mean, I've written out the whole thing, just not as fleshed out in so many words.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like I've already done that. So I want to make sure that I'm fresh and, because I don't want to be writing a novel and thinking, man, I wish I was doing something else, because then I'm not giving it all that it needs.
Right. And the readers will definitely pick that up on that as well. They can tell the spots where you got bored. I mean, if you're bored writing it, they're going to be bored reading it.
Exactly. So this hybrid thing that I do works for me. And that's the beauty of writing, though. Because I get the question all the time about how do you write and stuff like that. There's no wrong way to do it. You find out, it's trial and error. You find out what works for you and you make it work for you. Because really, at the end of the day, if you're writing to publish something for people to read, the reader doesn't care if I wrote an outline or not.
Right.
The reader only cares that that they've read a book they enjoyed. At least that's what I hope. When I read, that's what I'm interested in is, did I enjoy this book? I don't generally sit and think, gee, I wonder what their outline looks like, or, You know, I wonder if they're a pantser. I can't read any more of their stuff. You know, so I'd like to think most readers are that way, that they're really just interested in what's, you know, did I enjoy this book, and you go from there. So the beauty, there's no right or wrong way to do it. And if you ask 10 different writers how they do things, you're probably going to get 10 different answers.
You are indeed. Yes. Yes. There are kind of general outlines, I think, that work for most people. You know, there's kind of like 4 or 5 different ways that I think most people could break down into doing. But, you know, for me, I've got to have my tea in a certain spot. I've got my free write in front of me. I've got my particular music that I listen to playing, which I'm into epic scores and you know, the wordless music, because if I have lyrics in my music when I'm writing, invariably the lyrics somehow transform what I'm writing. I hate it when that happens, so I always listen to things that don't have lyrics with it. But yeah, I've got, you know, if I've got those things there, then my brain knows, okay, we're in writing mode, and that's what we're going to concentrate on. So that's what we'll do, you know. And if I have other things that are going on distracting me in some kind of way, it's not going to get done. It's just the way that I am.
Exactly. Yes. There's so many different ways. I mean, there's people that have to write in complete and utter silence, alone, doors closed, no interruptions. There's other people that can write in restaurants or coffee shops. You know, there are people that make playlists. There are people that just listen to the radio. I know writers that can watch TV and write. And I don't know how the hell you do that. But because if I turn the TV on, all productivity stops.
Indeed.
And so, and nobody needs that. That's just, yes, the TV is bad. So the TV does not get turned on during the day, because I know if the TV comes on during the day, Bobby doesn't work.
Well, like I said, I have my free write, and I don't know if you've ever used one of those or seen one of those, but the nice thing with them is that they're connected to the internet, so that everything that you write into it gets saved on the cloud somewhere. But at the same time, you can't do anything else with it in any way, shape, or form. So you can't get on and check Facebook, can't get on and check your email or whatever, you know, nothing's there to distract you.
Those things are evil also.
They are indeed.
I love social media, but my God, it is a rabbit hole that you can get lost down.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Especially if someone posts a video that you click it and it takes you to YouTube.
Well, then you get lost in the black hole of YouTube. I mean,
exactly.
And there's the dark side that's over there that you don't want to get sucked into, because you'll never come out of it.
Yeah. So you have to be careful. I try to regulate. I'm not great at it. I am getting better, but I try to regulate my day, you know, because that's when it became a job for me. I try to treat it like a job, which means I need to write X number of hours a day, and that doesn't always happen, but I try. But I try to make sure, because, you know, I can spend all day doing networking and marketing and answering emails and doing interviews and writing related stuff that can keep me busy all day. But at the end of the day, adds no words to the book. Right,
exactly. So you have to be very careful with the time that you do. I definitely understand that. I mean, in fact, when I got really back into writing, I stopped writing for about 10 years because of some issues that ended up occurring with some exes that decided they would destroy everything that I wrote. But, you know, so I stopped writing for a while. And then when I got back into it again, I got back into it right around the same time that I started doing radio shows. And when I first started doing the radio shows, I was doing, 6 days a week. Different shows. So I host different shows, but I was doing this one in particular 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And then I was also on Thursdays and Sundays. So between it all, you know, the way that my brain works, it's like when you're doing a radio show, when you're hosting it, you know, there's a lot of time that goes into getting the show prepped, getting the social media stuff out there to, you know, get people to listen and all that stuff that goes with it. And by the time all is said and done, you know, it's a 10 to 15 hour process just to do one show. So, you know, there's a lot of work that goes into it. It's not just the 2 hours that people end up listening to it with. But, you know, by the time that I got done with it all, my brain, it's like that. The radio shows took a certain creative part of the brain. And it was the same part of the brain that ends up being creative with the writing stuff. So, it's like I couldn't do both of them in one day, because the way that I work in particular, I got to kind of gear myself up to know this day is going to be dedicated to writing. So by the time that I got all, everything said and done, I said, you know what, I have to make this show one day a week, because everything was suffering, I had to, I didn't have a choice.
Yeah. I used to co-host a weekly podcast, and it's, the podcast lasted 2 hours, but there was a lot of other, prepping the guest or going out and finding the guest.
Right.
Promoting it after. I mean, it's a big commitment. I don't think a lot of people realize that. It's like, oh, you only work 2 hours a week. Sure. but it, there is something fun about it. I mean, when I had to, there came a point where I just had to give something up, and I ended up giving up co-hosting the podcast, which I loved doing it, but it was either give up the writing or give up the podcast. So
right.
The podcast had to go, and I pop on every once in a while and visit with them, but it's a lot of work, and you have to budget your time with freelance work just like you do with any other work.
Exactly. And I think even more so when it comes to freelancing, because there's so much of the fact that you are your own kind of self-starter. If you're not doing it, there's nobody that's there to push you into doing it.
Right. Well, plus it's so easy to go, okay, I've been writing a couple hours. I'm tired. I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to do that, but you do that enough, then you're like, oh, how am I way behind? Oh, that's why.
That's why, indeed.
Or the opposite, where you feel the need to work 20 hours a day.
And it definitely, there's times in life, in our journeys with this, that we do kind of one or the other. We'll have a period of time for a month or two where we'll only do, an hour or two a day if we're lucky. And then there's a time period of, like 4 months where we're just doing nothing but, typing away. And that's it, I was that way last year. I ended up writing, I think it ended up being 8 different novels, a bunch of short stories, some flash fiction. I wrote three books for other people as ghostwriting, and it was like a really prolific year for me. But then this year I've been slower, and I know it's because last year, boy, I put a lot of it into it,
Yeah, and it's weird how that works, because sometimes books set a while, especially if you write for small press or anthologies and stuff, and it'll be like, I'm going along, and I was like, yeah, nothing's come out for like the last 6 months. And then in 1 month, 4 books come out.
Right, exactly. Like I said, I got 2 of them that are coming out here within the next month or so. And I haven't published anything at all since October, so.
Yeah, well, last year was a slow one for me. We had family issues, so I fell behind. I'm back at a point now where I'm starting to slowly dig my way out of the deadline hole. But last year was rough in terms of writing. There just, because of other stuff going on, there wasn't time to sit and do it. So not much got done, and it was weird. It was, because I'm used to writing all the time. So when you're not writing, you feel weird.
It's a guilty feeling.
Yeah,
it's a guilty feeling for me. Yeah,
yeah. It's one of those things where what that's why when people say, do you believe in writer's block? I'm like, no, I believe in Bobby block, because Bobby stops me from writing. I am my own worst enemy when it comes to that. It's like, what's that old joke? How do you know when a writer's on deadline? They decide to clean the office.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
But it's really one of those things. It's like, I really need to write. Oh, the dishes need done. Laundry needs washed.
Everything gets shiny. Yeah. Everything becomes shiny and distracting. Yes.
And then when you get done, you're like, okay, now I can write. But boy, I'm tired. Let me see what's on TV. I'm guilty of that. Once I sit down, get the laptop fired up, and I sit down and I start, I'm good.
Yeah.
It's getting me to put my butt in the seat, telling everybody, leave me alone, putting my butt in the seat and getting started. That's the hardest part of my job.
Well, with you doing it for this long, the people that are around you, the people that know you, your friends and family and all that, do they sort of respect your time? Do they know, like, when you're in writing mode, it's like you're at work, and not to be disrupted? Or do you get those people that, oh, come on out here, we're gonna go out here and have some fun or whatever?
Boy, I'd love to say yes, but my family's the worst, because it's like, hey, come help me do something right now. And like, can it not wait? I'm like, I've told my family, it's like, I will help you guys with anything. If you want to clean the garage, I will help you. Tell me on Monday that you want to do it on Tuesday, and I will be there. That way I can double up on work on Monday. No, what happens is he calls me Tuesday morning and says, come over right now. So I'm trying to get them better trained at that, but that's my family. I don't think it's ever going to change.
That's family.
Yeah. My friends will contact me and go, hey, do you have time to come to lunch today? Or are you busy? And a lot of times I'm like, yeah, I can squeeze in lunch, So, I mean, it's not like there are that many people demanding of my, most of them are, pretty cool about, scheduling things, as opposed to just nobody drops by in the middle of the day because they know I'm working.
Yeah, I gotcha. I interviewed a person a couple of weeks ago who had, I think it was 4 kids, and all of them were very young, so she had to learn how to really balance her time as well. Mm-hmm. That's difficult. I've got 3 of my own, but luckily they're in their teen and up years at this point in time, so they know when Daddy's writing. Daddy alone.
They know when the door to the office is closed. That's the universal code for leave Daddy alone.
Exactly. Bobby, we need to hit another break here real quick. When we come back, I got another couple of questions that came in from the different chats for you, and some other places that we can go as well. How's that sound?
Works for me.
Awesome. So you guys listening to Open Eyes, my name is Ira Robinson. Tonight we're here with Bobby Nash, and hopefully you guys are enjoying the show as much as I am. I'm definitely having a good old time, and I think that you guys are too. If you guys want to call in, 260-494-3937 is the call-in number. Skype line is JDA Film. As always, we're over in the chat room at lnmradionetwork.com. Come on over there and visit with us. I know it always devolves into conversations about food, but that's okay. We still love everybody over there anyways. We'll be right back, folks.
Open Eyes seeks out the heart of matters, looking for explanations in places that most other radio hosts refuse to go. No subject is forbidden, and nothing remains hidden. Listen to Open Eyes on the Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network, weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. Open minds, open hearts, open eyes.
The L&M Radio Network and Late Night in the Midlands depends on you, the listener. Without you, there would be no us. So help us continue to bring you the best guests with the best information, and subscribe today. Information on becoming an L&M subscriber can be found at the top of LateNightInTheMidlands.com. Just click the About Subscriptions tab and become part of the family while helping the truth stay alive. And while you're at it, maybe subscriptions aren't for you. A one-time donation helps as well. Click that donate button on the right side of LateNightInTheMidlands.com and help us help you.
Newly released into paperback and ebook format, Illusions and Dreams, The Ultimate Collection, is an anthology of short stories and novellas from author Ira Robinson. Dark desires, tragic decisions, and amazing journeys. Shadows lurk out of the corner of your eye. Burning questions and bending realities force their way into your mind. All this and more will become part of your illusions and dreams. This is the ultimate collection of short stories by best-selling author Ira Robinson. In this book, you'll find new places, new faces, and be taken on a journey through amazing illusions and dreams. Find Illusions and Dreams, the Ultimate Collection, at every major bookseller including Amazon and Barnes & Noble, as well as his website, originalworlds.com. That's originalworlds.com.
if you begin by closing your eyes and begin to visualize a clear mountain stream. Sometimes this will remind you should have urinated before starting. If this is the case, stop the tape and go take a leak. Let the troubles of the day live your life. Let your anger be free like a fart in the wind. A very peaceful spiritual fart flowing through you and joining the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere of the planet you are helping to destroy. But back to the peaceful meditation. Let go of any anger you may have. You might not feel the anger right now. Perhaps the anger is from something that happened earlier in your day. For example, you may be a spiritual writer or a famous person that is driving to a lecture. You may have stopped at the gas station, and the zit-faced little punk behind the counter cops an attitude, to the point where you want to bust him in the face. It is agreed not a very spiritual thought at the time, but gratifying nonetheless. Instead, visualize the resulting lawsuit and damage to your career. Imagine now that you are a big purple dinosaur named Barney, and you love everyone. I love you, you love me, you sing it all day, because you are totally purple. You now should be visualizing a light around you, and you will soon see in a moment the answer to why we are here and what is the meaning of life is.
This concludes Side 1. Please flip the tape over.
Open Eyes Network now airs a live simulcast on YouTube. Our YouTube channel, youtube.com/C/Open Eyes Network, features not just our live content, but other videos as well, and is always active. So now you can tune in many different ways. Open Eyes Network shows air Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time live. Be sure to visit OpenEyesNetwork.com to find easy-to-use links to get to all of the places that you want to listen to our shows. And don't forget, all of our shows will now be archived as well on YouTube. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Open Eyes. My name is Ira Robinson. Tonight we're here with Bobby Nash, and if you guys want to call in and join us, 260-494-3937 is the call-in number. And again, we're over there in the chat room at lnmradionetwork.com. Bobby, we are back. Thanks for sticking around through that break with us there, and I've got a couple of questions that did come in from the chat for you.
Cool.
So the first one would be, do you have a set schedule to write? I think you kind of almost answered this one, but kind of how many hours a day do you dedicate to writing?
I try to write a little during the day. I'm very much a night owl, so my day does not start early. You're lucky to find me awake before 10.
Same here.
Sometimes 11. But usually the first couple of hours of the day, I'm taking care of writing related business, answering emails, doing interviews, updating my websites, whenever, sales are happening or promotions or things like Read a ebook week was last week, or things like that you're promoting and spreading around. I tend to knock that out of the way first, usually in a couple of hours. And then I usually grab some lunch, eat at my desk while I'm writing, and we'll write for several hours. Then I usually take a break, and I have to some personal things that have to get done during the day or during the early evening. So I take care of those. Then with dinner, I'll watch a little TV while I'm eating dinner, and then I'll come back and I'll write for another 3 or 4 hours. So I'm getting in a good 7 to 9 hours a day, depending on the days.
Nice.
And then,
nice.
So that is not every day. There are those days where that nighttime comes around and I'm watching TV and I'm comfortable and I'm like, yeah, it'll wait till tomorrow. I try not to do those often, but things like that. I also do a lot of conventions on the weekends, so I don't really get as much writing done on the weekend. So getting it done during the week is a lot more important.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. How many words do you usually get in a day, or try to?
When I'm having a good day, if I can knock out 3 a day, that would be perfect. It's usually closer to 15 to 2, depending on what I'm writing and how many times I had to stop and stare blankly at the wall trying to figure out what to write next. Or, but when the words are flowing, I can do 3. There have been those rarer occasions where I can pop up to 4 or 5. But those are those days where I go for hours with no interruptions. I haven't thought to eat, go to the bathroom, get anything to drink. I'm just so into what I'm doing. And they don't happen all the time. But when they do happen, you know how it is. You just kind of get in the zone and you're there.
I usually do about... I was just going to say, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just say, the next thing you know, it's like, it's dark outside and you're like, where did the sun go?
Right.
And, yeah. So.
I usually get in about 1,500 a day minimum. Like that's my minimum that I have set. And if I don't hit that, I feel really bad about myself, and
that's a good minimum. 1,500 is a good day.
It's a really respectable one, I think, and most of the time I can get in, 2,500 ish, right around in that zone. I try to do a bare minimum of a chapter a day. And usually my chapters are between like 2,000 and 4,000 words. And if I can get in that chapter a day, then I feel, good about myself. I've had one day where I went over 10,000 since I've been tracking. I may have done it before at some point, but since I've been tracking it anyway, I've had one where I went above 10,000 and I was like done for the next 2 days. So I don't try to push myself that hard, to go that high, because I know the next day or the day after that, I'm not going to be very productive at all. I kind of blew it all in that one shot, and
that's when you also have to wait for your fingers to start
exactly working. Yeah. And when you've been writing for as long as I have, the carpal tunnel is definitely there. So it's not a fun experience.
But like I said, about 15,000 to 2 and that's just on the book. I don't count writing related work.
Right. Yeah.
That does not count as a work, So, I mean, if you took all that into account, I'm sure we could probably all add another 2,000.
Oh yeah. Bare minimum. All the posts that you do on social media, the websites, talking in chat rooms, all that kind of stuff.
And,
it definitely
and all that stuff's important.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's what I'll go back to my corporate days here. That's not value added time. That's not value added work, because it doesn't get the book finished any faster.
Yeah, I like to go with that whole 80-20 rule. The 20% of work is what you make 80% of your money with. So what's that 20% that's going to make you the most? Well, it's by writing more books. Guaranteed, you're not going to make any money if you don't write more. And if you just stay in stasis, you're probably still going to be stuck at whatever income level you're making with it. So.
But plus the even though it's not adding to the words in the book, the promotion and part that you do on social media or at conventions is helpful, because you can write the best book in the world, but if nobody buys it and reads it, so you've got to get the word out so people know it's there. Yeah. So I mean, it's a delicate balance. It's you just have to figure out again what works best for you. I know some people do their social media in 10-minute blocks. I know some people that will go on Sunday and write posts for the whole week. So all they got to go in and do is go in and drop them.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I'll usually do it either not too long after I wake up, sort of like you do, or if I didn't do it in that frame of time, then I'll do it like between breaks when I'm writing. So like I'll write, and get an hour worth of work out, and then do about 10 minutes worth of promo stuff on social media, and then get back into writing again for another hour or whatever the case may be. So I still feel like I'm at least accomplishing something doing the marketing side of things, one way or the other. But yeah, I definitely know how it is.
Yeah, because most of us are one man or a one person band.
Right.
I'm a one man band. I'm setting up. When we talked about setting this up, it was me and you talking. I didn't have an assistant doing it.
Yep.
When I'm contacting conventions about going, that's me, and that's when interview requests come in or people want to do book reviews. I mean, I'm doing all that, and which I don't mind. It's I like being in charge of my career here, and I wish I was better at making my career better than it is, but it's certainly better than it was a few years ago.
I like the idea of if I failed, it's because of me, not because somebody failed for me,
Right.
or made me fail in some kind of way. It was all on me. Okay, hey, I'm the only one that I can blame then, I'm not going to feel bad about, I got to fire you or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And really, and that kind of motivates you too.
It does.
There are those nights where you're laying here watching TV, and you're like, if you would just get up and write for another hour, you might finish this project on time.
Yep.
You could go ahead and get started on this next one. Or when you get that idea that pops into your head and you go, I don't have time to work on that now. If you screw around less over here doing this stuff and write more, you can get to that. Or, So yeah, stuff like that deadlines motivate me.
Yeah, me too. I don't have a deadline for the books that I write, but I set myself a deadline. I want this book done by, X date in one way or the other. At least the first draft of it needs to be done by this point in time. And again, if I don't, I feel really guilty about it. So I've kind of trained myself to follow that dedeadline,
And you have to, there's a business aspect to it that you have to do. I use Excel spreadsheets. I have a whiteboard above my desk here with open projects and when they're due, so I can because being a freelancer, I work for multiple publishers. And so, and they don't always talk to each other. So sometimes you'll have two things due at the same time. And so you have to, make sure they're both done. So scheduling is a big part, and it's, like I said, I like to think I was better at it. Sometimes I still come down to the wire a lot on deadlines, but I'm trying to get better at it.
So one of the other questions that came in for you is when it comes to the writing that you've done, what's the hardest thing that you've had to write? So maybe not necessarily like, it was difficult to write it because the words were blah or whatever, but what was the hardest thing for you to put down? Like maybe hurt you the most or something like that?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I'm trying to think. That's a toughie. I don't know that any of the things have hurt me before. There have been a couple of times where I've been asked to write things that were outside my comfort zone. When I first started, one of the publishers I worked for doing comics, they started up an adult comic, and they knew it wasn't like an X-rated thing. It was just, but there was nudity and sex, but the publisher knew that I was interested in writing novels and prose, and so the publisher hired me to write a short story in that vein. And so I did it, and there was this moment of, oh my God, my mom's going to read this. I also had that with Evil Ways. There's a very funny story with Evil Ways. Evil Ways was my first published novel. It is a suspense thriller. There's a mystery there. Like, I don't tell you who the killer is. You have to kind of figure it out along with their heroes. And there's a scene in there where the killer follows these two women. One of them's in town, so she's staying with a friend. And the killer follows them to the house, and he's watching the house. And the killer goes into this fantasy thing in his head and begins to do things with himself. That's probably as politically correct as I can get that here. And it's a small character moment, but I had that same fear as, oh my God, my mother's going to read this. And so after the book came out, I was driving home from work one day, and my mother called me and says, "Hey, what you doing?" And we talked for a minute. She said, "I come by the house." I'm like, "Okay." So I went over to visit, and my dad worked at night, so it was just my mom there. And so I went in, we sat down, and we chit-chatted for a while. And after I said, "So what do you want me to come by for?" And she said, "Well, I finished your book." And I'm like, "Oh, God, here it comes." And she said, "Well, I like this, and I like that, and blah, blah, blah." And she goes, "There was this one scene." And I'm like, "Oh, here it comes." And it was that scene. And she goes, "You should have done a couple of more like that with the character, because that really made him feel more evil." And I'm just staring at her dumbfounded, deer in the headlights, going, "I beg pardon?" And I never worried about what my mother would think about my writing again after that. But kudos to her for knowing, for understanding what I was doing.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and so, you dirty mind.
Yeah, because, well, we were at a point where, we didn't talk about stuff like that, and so, so it was one of those things that up to that point I was worried about what she's going to think, and I stopped worrying about it after that.
Yeah, I would too.
But yeah, so that wasn't difficult for me. It was just nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Anytime I've worked on things that I don't own, characters that are not mine, or even more importantly, characters that have a following, there's a nervousness that comes with that, because this comes with a built-in fan base. And
if you mess it up, they'll let you know.
Oh yeah. The first one where it really got me was when I was writing some Green Hornet stories for Moonstone. And Green Hornet's not, super famous, but there is a substantial Green Hornet fan base.
Oh yeah.
And there was, and not only did we have to send the plot to get the plot approved by the publisher, the people that own the Green Hornet had to approve it. So I got to write 2 of them, so I guess the first one was okay. But there was that fear of, this is suddenly going to be under more scrutiny than, say, something I wrote that's original to me. Because this is, not only is it a good story, you suddenly have people going, did he screw this up?
Yep.
Because they're, and later I had the same feeling again when Jamie Chase and I did the Edgar Rice Burroughs novel At the Earth's Core. We adapted that into a graphic novel, and it was the same thing. This has a pretty vocal, substantial fan base. Burroughs. There's a lot of Burrow files.
A lot of Burrow fans out there. Yes.
It's got its own name, the Burrow files. So there are people. There's a group here, and it's one of those things. It's like, man, I don't want to screw this up. And one of the best things that I heard about it in terms of the writing, I mean, everybody gushed over the art because Jamie's paintings were just absolutely gorgeous. But one of the best things in terms of writing that I heard was that I captured the Burroughs dialogue and sound and feel in the dialogue, and I thought about that, and my smart aleck response as well. I was writing Edgar Rice Burroughs At the Earth's Core, not Bobby Nash's At the Earth's Core. So there was but no, it was one of those things that I was very conscious of going into it as,
right.
I've got to get this right for that fan base, because they will know if because when you adapt anything into comics form, you have to leave stuff out. There's just no way to adapt that big novel into a 100, there's 101 or 102 pages. There just wasn't, stuff has to get left out.
Right.
But in terms of using dialogue, I cheated a little. I used Burroughs dialogue whenever I could. I took it right out of the novel. I'm no fool. It's already there, But you have to paraphrase and cut some of it out. But as often as I could, I would use the dialogue as it pre-existed, and so that helped, to feel like the characters. I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. And that's something I'm conscious of whenever I work on, and I've done many things that I don't own the character. So you try to be conscious of the character or the book. I'm not. You kind of have to look at it as, how can I tell the best Green Hornet story I can tell? Not how can I make my story fit into a Green Hornet? Make the Green Hornet fit into my story.
Right. There's a different mindset that's there. Yeah.
Exactly. And so you have to think of it that way. I'm hired to come in and write this one story. That means at the end of it, I have to put all the toys back where I found them. So you can't do things like, you can't cut off the Green Hornet's arm unless you've got a way to make it magically reappear by the end of the story. Things like that. My friend Sean loves to throw out this one: don't blow up Cleveland, we may need it later. And it's good advice, because, a lot of times, people will send in plots and they're having like, in this issue, the main character has falls in love, gets married, has a kid, the wife and kid are killed. And I'm like, and the editors are going, wait a minute. Those are defining moments for the character.
Yeah.
The people that own the character want to do those. They just want you to tell a nice story with those characters. And so things like that. So you have to go in knowing what you're there for. Yes, I've been hired. You're hired to write the Green Hornet. Great. Just tell the best Green Hornet story you can. Don't try to reinvent the Green Hornet.
Right, exactly. I definitely can understand that. I've never written anything for, like a pre-existing fan base before myself, other than like maybe a little bit of fan fiction or something, but that's a different set of things there.
You follow the same kind of rules.
Yeah, exactly.
I wrote a couple of Star Trek fan films for a group.
Yes, and I was going to actually mention those. I'm a huge Trek freak, so in fact, I'm wearing my Star Trek shirt right now. So
it was one of those. I did it to see if I could do it. I had never written a full screenplay before. Wasn't sure I could do it. Wanted to try my luck. I met the Starship Farragut guys at a convention. They sat across the aisle from me. It was a hotel convention. So they're right across the aisle from me for 3 days. And at that point, I think they had 3 or 4 episodes that played on a continuous loop for 3 days. So by the end of it, and I'd talked to them during the weekend. We got to know them. And by the end of on Sunday, before we packed up, I walked over and says, I think I have an idea for a story. And they're like, great, write it up, send it to us. Nope, we can't make any guarantees, but we'll look at it. And it was one of those things. I basically did it just to see if I could do it. And then, so I did it, and they made it, and it came out really nice, and I'm very proud of it. And and then that led to me doing some work on the first Star Trek Continues, which was also fun because there I got to write Kirk, Spock, and McCoy dialogue.
Yes.
And as cool as it is just playing in a corner of the Star Trek universe, writing Kirk, Spock, and McCoy dialogue is incredibly awesome for a Star Trek fan. So I had a ball doing the 2 that I did. They were a lot of fun. And we still show them. We do them at conventions. I have like 700 Farragut DVDs. So we're giving out Farragut DVDs on a regular basis.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
And actually, if you want to give one away to a listener, we can do that. If that's something you want to do,
that would be awesome. I would say if you guys out there that are listening want to take part in that, why don't we do it this way? The first person, we can do it by timing, the first person to send an email to me, feedback@openeyesnetwork.com, you guys will get a copy of that. How's that sound?
That works.
All right, cool. Awesome. That's great. And, quickly sending myself an email. Quickly sending myself an email. No.
I will send you one as well. Yeah.
Awesome. That works.
And if you don't, these are all for free on YouTube, or if you go to my website and look under the BobbyNash.com and look under film, they're there as well.
That's great. That's great.
so much fun. We do we'll go to shows when I do conventions. Sometimes we'll do screenings at the convention, and we will show the episode, and then give away DVDs, and that's been a lot of fun. We've had a lot of people come out just to come out and watch the screening and hang out. Those were fun. Getting to visit the sets was an incredible moment.
Oh, that would be so fun. Yes.
It was it's a magical feeling to just, at 1 minute you're in a warehouse, a door opens and you are inside the Starship Enterprise. And unless you look straight up, you can't tell you're not until you get out of the corridors. It was such a, it's hard to put, for a guy who uses words for a living, it's hard to put into words how I felt the first time I walked on those sets. And it's a magical feeling. And I'm hoping they'll one day open them back up again. They used to do like a mini convention down there where you could go and tour the sets, and those were absolutely phenomenal. And so a lot of fun.
That would definitely be very cool. Okay, so switching topics a little bit on you here. Who would you say in your writing career has been your biggest supporter? Like, who has helped you in support, whether it's, helped you get out there more or just been there, as your greatest cheerleader, whatever the case may be? Who's been the biggest support for you?
Wow. I've had it from a lot of people. But you know what? The biggest surprise for me in terms of that was my dad. My dad was not a big reader when I was growing up. I can't remember my dad cracking a book that wasn't a NASCAR magazine or a newspaper. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but when he retired, my mother was a reader. And when Mom retired, she would read every morning. So when my dad retired, he goes, oh, well, that must be what we do every day. So he started reading so they could spend time together on the back porch reading every day. And my dad suddenly became a voracious reader. Started reading all my books, and he carries around a pocket full of my business cards, and he's always telling people, about me and handing out cards and stuff like that, which I thought was just, it's amazing. And it's one of those things too. When he does it, he's a proud father talking about his son. When I go out, if I go out and do what he's doing, I'm an arrogant writer trying to foist myself off on people.
Yes.
But he does that a lot. Still to this day does that a lot. I took him to the doctor the other day, and I drove him, and I was in the waiting room when he came out, and he goes, "Come here for a second." And he goes, "I want you to meet the doctor and give him one of your cards." And the doctor goes, "Oh, you must be the writer." So my dad's probably one of the biggest there for that. And and I've had other people, throughout my life that have been supportive in one way or another. There were, some conventions. There are conventions that were letting me set up back in the day when I was drawing comics and stapling them together on typing paper. I still do that convention. It's a one-day show they do 4 times a year here in Atlanta, called the Atlanta Comic Convention. I'm doing one Sunday, as a matter of fact. And I still go to that, because they were kind enough to give me a table back when I was really nobody. Now I'm only kind of nobody, but so there's been a lot of people like that have, come hang out in the store. Hey, I'll put your books in my store, or come do a signing, or, come be on our radio show, come be on our podcast. There's a lot of people out there that have reached out over the years that, I'm still amazed when I get invited to do anything. You would figure after all, as many years as I've been doing this, it wouldn't be as a surprise as much anymore. But whenever I get any kind of invitation to do anything, it still comes as a big shock to me. So
it's that way for me too. When somebody like hands me a kudo in some kind of way or something along those lines, I'm just like, no, you can't be talking about me.
I'll tell you a funny one. I don't know how much time I'm going to get here. I'll tell you a quick funny one.
Yeah, we got about 6 minutes left. So
okay, this one's quick. I was at a convention, and I was on a panel. It was a writing panel. I was talking about, it was about characters. It was about creating characters. And there's like 8 of us up there. And so I was at one end. So we're talking about creating characters. And so down at the other end, one of the other writers was talking, and they asked something of the audience. And I admit at this point, I'm only partly paying attention because, sometimes I zone out on these things. And there's a lady in the audience that's talking, and I can hear her, but I'm not paying 100% attention. Then I notice the room gets really quiet. I think I was playing on my phone, maybe. I don't know. And I look up and I realize everybody's looking at me. And I'm like, huh? What? Sorry, I zoned out and had her repeat what she said. And they were talking about favorite characters. And the lady in the audience mentioned that one of the favorite characters that she's read in the last year, and she mentioned one of the characters I created for one of my books. And of course, I was not paying any attention.
Whoops. Whoops.
So I'm like, oh, wait, that's my character. And so I felt like a complete boob up on the stage, but it was a funny moment. And, it was, so stuff like that's amazing because I don't know if you get this, but sometimes when you write the book and you send it out, it's going out to be read, but you don't actually think about people really reading it.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm that way.
And then somebody comes up and says, hey, I read your book. And you're like, oh, cool. Thank you. Then they start telling you about things they like. And you're like, oh, they really did read the book. Or sometimes it's because, sometimes it's been a while and they'll start telling them like, wait, I don't remember that part.
What happened? Oh yeah. I've had that, somebody mentioned something about a scene that was in one of my books and I'm like, that was there. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I remember.
This was a life-changing moment for me. I'm like, is that from my book?
Yes.
But yeah, so it's always very, very cool when that happens and someone's read it and they come to you and they tell you either in a review or they tell you in person. It's the greatest feeling in the world.
It really is. Yep. It really is. Okay, well, we're coming down on time here. I want to make sure that you get enough time to get out where people can find your books. So why don't we go there? Where can people find your books, and how would you like them to contact you and all that kind of good stuff?
The easiest way is bobbynash.com, BOBBY at BOBBYNASH.com. There's links to everything on there, how to contact me. There's links to where you can buy all the books. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Google Plus, LinkedIn, you name it. I'm probably on it. There maybe one or two. I don't do Snapchat or anything, but because nobody wants to see my face. But yes, but I'm on a lot of those things. Feel free to hit me up. If you write me, I will answer. It may take a day or two, but I will answer. But we love reviews. If you've read something, please leave a review. Those are awesome. And because that helps writers. Reviews are not just an ego stroke. The more reviews you get, the higher you move in the rankings.
Right, they really are the bread and butter.
Yeah, and that makes it easier for people to go. Like when you see those things, if you like this, you'll probably like this. Getting higher in the rankings helps make things like that happen.
Right. Yep.
And so so we're reviews are always and people are always go like, I don't know how to write a review, and I'm like, you know what? It's simple. You go up there, you give it however many stars you feel it deserves, and then you type in, I liked this novel, and that's it. So there's all different kinds of things. But yeah, bobbynash.com, there's links to everything. That's the easiest way to find me. But yeah, look me up on the various social medias, and I ramble. I also have Patreon. I'm on that. That's been an interesting experience. I try to do some I use Patreon kind of like a subscription service. If you're in the $5 or more a month tier, you get at least one free book a month, which is about almost a $5 value. And I try to give you ebooks of all the new stuff that comes out. So you get at least one a month. Most months you get two. Some months you get like 4 or 5.
That's awesome.
Awesome. So it's like a subscription service. And that's patreon.com/Bobby Nash. Most of mine are pretty easy like that. It's whatever /Bobby Nash. Every once in a while it'll either be like Facebook. I have an author page, so it's author Bobby Nash. And then I think Instagram, because my old Instagram got hacked. My new Instagram, or my newer Instagram, is Bobby Nash Writes. So,
well, we'll have all of that linked up for you on our website, as well as the archive for the YouTube as well. So anybody that's out there listening, you guys can catch that over there on our website as well. So there you go. Bobby, this has been great. I got one final question for you here.
All right.
And I ask this of every guest, so please don't think that it's weird. But if this is the last thing that anybody ever hears from Bobby, what would your final message out there to the people be? What would you want people to know or hold on to the most?
Boy, I'd love for this to be deep and all, but it'd be like, please buy my books. I don't know. I hope that in all honesty and sincerity, I hope that anyone that's ever met me or has interacted with me online or anything walks away from it going, I was a nice guy. So hopefully people will take that from it, that I love what I do and I'm very honored to do what I do. I would love to make more money doing what I do, so please buy my books. But yeah, I'm thrilled to be able to create stories for a living. I've worked with and met some of the most incredible people because I do what I do. I've got to travel because I do what I do. I've made friends that have been friends for now decades because I do what I do. And, at the end of the day, I am so very thrilled that this is, and you know what? If I never sold another book, I'm proud of the body of work I have. Now I have this one of these goals is to become a New York Times bestselling author one day. So I'm not there yet. So hopefully it's not the last one I sell. But
there you go.
But if I never ever did another book, I'm very proud of what I've accomplished to this point.
Awesome, Bobby. Thank you so much for being here tonight. This has been great. I've loved having you here, and everybody out there seems to be really into the show tonight. They've definitely enjoyed it. So it's definitely appreciated you being here tonight.
Well, thanks, Ira. I appreciate it. This was fun. Yeah, I know at the beginning we're like, I'll do the hour, and you were right, 2 hours.
And we didn't even touch everything that I wanted to ask. Yeah. So that's how it goes. Hang around for a minute. I'll talk to you after the show.
Okay.
So there you guys go. Bobby Nash, great author, really awesome guy. Hopefully you guys enjoyed tonight. We will be back again on Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Money and Change, as well as the Positude podcast, wherever you guys are listening to this now. You can listen to that then, as always. And then on Thursday, we'll be back with Brothers at Arms. I promise, shy of me being sick again, we'll be doing it live. So you guys can tune in for that as well. If you guys liked this show and you want to hear the archive or go to any of the archives of all of the other shows that we do, you guys can go over to my website, openeyesnetwork.com. I've got all of the archives of everything that I do over there. So that's all available. And again, over on youtube.com/C/Open Eyes Network. Also, if you guys want to send me an email, send it to feedback@openeyesnetwork.com. And don't forget, the first one that comes in is going to get a copy of the Star Trek Farragut from him. So awesome. Thank you so much for doing that for us, Bobby. That is so cool of you. And if you guys want to meet us on social media, we're everywhere on social media as well. Open Eyes Network on all of the different platforms out there. If you guys want to check out my own books, make sure you guys head over to my website, originalworlds.com. I've got all kinds of free stories, free books, free writing advice, writing tips, writing prompts, you name it, all kinds of author help and everything over there also. So make sure you guys head on over in that direction. Until next time, keep safe out there. Have fun. Thank you so much, as always, for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon.